Trico, Torchic, and Mudkip, the Gen 3 starters. But which is your favorite? Pokemon fact number 252. Did you know that Trico has balls of steel? Trico will stand its ground against any opponent and will do so ferociously. We learn in Pokemon Sapphire that if a larger opponent was to glare menacingly at Trico, it would glare right back without conceding an inch of ground. They hammer it home by saying, Trico's cool, calm, and collected, and never panics under any situation. And I'm doing a little watch party tonight for my Generation 2 fact compilation, so be sure to join in if you're interested. Which is a bigger risk to have in your internet history? How to make explosives or Lopunny? Pokemon fact number 253. Did you know that Grovyle has impressive thighs? Pokemon Fire Red is sure to let us know that Grovyle has extremely well-developed thigh muscles. This allows Grovyle to hunt down prey in jungles by quickly jumping branch to branch. And speaking of quickly, Grovyle, while navigating through trees at least, is so agile that no Pokemon can hope to catch it. And considering the insane speed of a lot of Pokemon, those are definitely some impressive thighs. Who would win between the Predator and Sceptile? Pokemon fact number 254. Did you know that Sceptile is pretty much a gardener that could murder you? The lumpy things on Sceptile's back are actually seeds that are used to revitalize and grow trees and plants. Even though Sceptile acts like it's picking up a hobby while it's retired, it's still dangerous because the leaves on its body are as sharp as swords and can easily cut through giant trees. It's also said to be without peer in terms of jungle combat. So if that's the case, this fact could have been about Torchic acting like a little cozy water bottle, but I chose this one instead. Pokemon fact number 255. Did you know that Torchic males have little buttholes? So Torchic as a species have differences between their males and females. The difference being one little speck on the rear end of the males. Once the game's going 3D, we could see that it's actually off-center, so it might not be a butthole, but it's still an odd example of sexual dimorphism. In case people don't know, sexual dimorphism is when the different sexes of a species present different physical attributes, like female spiders being larger, or a lot of male birds having big showy feathers, or little bum holes, I guess. Here's a little treat for everyone. You see this? Look like anything to you? Pokemon fact number 256. Did you know that Combusken would be terrifying to see in a fight? So without even considering that this little demon can shoot fire, just witnessing its hand-to-hand combat would be horrific. Combusken has massive destructive potential in its kicks, and it's able to dish out 10 kicks per second. Keep in mind that while it's annihilating your femurs, it's also screaming the entire time. Its high-pitched screams aren't just for intimidation, though. They also help it boost its own concentration. Because, it probably doesn't want to lose focus and not finish the job. So Blaziken is 6'3". Unfortunately, another L for Charizard. Pokemon fact number 257. Did you know that Blaziken could jump over the Statue of Liberty? So Blaziken is said to be able to easily clear a 30-story building from a standing jump, which is at the very least about 100 meters or 328 feet. I don't know how people measure building sizes in America. With the Statue of Liberty being 93 meters from base to torch, that'd be easy work for a Blaziken. It's a shame that most of its entries only talk about its punching, because I bet we'd get some crazy info on the damage its legs could do. So I heard you like Mudkips. Pokemon fact number 258. Did you know that Mudkip doesn't need its eyes to see? The massive fin on Mudkip's head acts like a radar. It can sense movement in water and air currents, which allows Mudkip to sense everything that's going on around it. If a Mudkip needed to defend itself, then watch out, because it can unleash its amazing strength, where it can crush rocks bigger than itself and easily throw boulders around. So if you were to anger even a blind Mudkip, it would still be able to find you and crush you as well. I want your eggs. Because I'm doing a Nuzlocke run for Pokemon Violet, where the rules are I can only use eggs sent by my viewers. Pokemon fact number 259. Did you know that Marshtomp has really strong legs because of mud? So this is the third middle stage evolution starter this generation to have entries about how strong or well developed its legs are. Suspicions aside, Marshtomp's legs have become extremely sturdy because it lives in muddy areas with poor footing. So while its enemies will slip, fall, or just get stuck, Marshtomp moves even faster through mud than it does water. It's also said to quickly overwhelm any enemies that find themselves in Marshtomp's domain. Remember, all of us get a little swampy sometimes, but it's what you do with that gift that determines who you are. Pokemon fact number 260. Did you know that Swampert is a big, thick boy? This giant lord of the swamp has rock-hard arms. It can throw 1-ton boulders around like they're pebbles, and Swampert can swim easily while towing a ship. When it doesn't have an entire ship attached, it can reach swimming speeds of about 75 miles per hour. So this makes me a little concerned when the Pokédex tells us that when Swampert senses that a storm is on the way, it piles boulders around itself for protection. What kind of storms happen in the Pokemon world that a behemoth like Swampert needs to duck for cover? Do you want some life advice that'll make you happy and fulfilled? Yeah, same. Pokemon fact number 261. Did you know that Poochyena is a bit of a scaredy cat? Dog. Hyena. A lot of Poochyena's Pokédex entries talk a big game about it chasing down prey until the poor things are too exhausted to move, and having fangs that are disproportionately large to the rest of its body. But it turns out that Poochyena tends to turn tail and run away if its prey fights back, which is probably pretty common in the Pokemon world, and likely part of the reason why Poochyena is an omnivore, eating plants and meat instead of being a straight-up carnivore. Next month, I'll finally be in Japan, so get ready to see a lot of real-life footage of Pokemon-themed places. Pokemon fact number 262. Did you know that Mightyena will obey you without question, as long as you're not a loser? So in the wild, Mightyena live in packs of about 10, with one of them being the strongest and therefore undisputed leader. This behavior carries over to Mightyena that are raised by trainers, where they'll never disobey the order of their trainer as long as they're skilled enough, which is probably why they're used by Team Magma and Aqua in the Hoenn region. Need to do some eco-terrorism? Well, Mightyena won't ask questions, besides the not being able to speak thing. As someone with ADHD, I was surprised to learn that Zigzagoon is my spirit animal. Pokemon fact number 263. Did you know that Zigzagoon runs in zigzags because of its attention span? So Zigzagoon is an extremely curious Pokemon with huge amounts of energy, and most people would assume it runs in zigzag patterns as a physical trait, like a crab walking fast or sideways. But it turns out the only reason it zigzags is because it gets distracted by things. See something over here, see something over there, which is why Zigzagoon can have the ability Pick Up. If there's something on the ground near a Zigzagoon, it can't help but find it. Here's another reminder that I need my viewers' eggs. It's not a kink, it's for a Pokemon Nuzlocke. Pokemon fact number 264. Did you know that Linoon struggles against gently curving roads? So you'd think a Pokemon that's faster than most real-world land animals would be pretty good at chasing down prey. Well, it turns out that despite reaching speeds of 60 miles per hour, it fails at catching prey. A lot. Linoon can only run in straight lines and has to come to a screeching halt before it can turn. The Pokédex makes sure to tell us that winding paths and gently curving roads are especially challenging for it. Me and Wurmple have one specific thing in common. I'll let you figure that out. Pokemon fact number 265. Did you know that Wurmple's only defense is its bum? So poor Wurmple is targeted by bird Pokemon frequently. It does use its sticky white web fluid to immobilize foes, and that might work on a Starly, but given that Wurmple gets targeted by Swellow, its only real form of defending itself is with the spikes on its bum. These spikes leak poison, which will weaken Wurmple's predators and allow it to escape. So basically, Wurmple's ass makes its foes weak. Evolving Wurmple for a specific evolution is still one of the most irritating things in the game. Pokemon fact number 266. Did you know that Silcoon survives entirely without eating? Silcoon stays as still as possible so it doesn't waste any of that precious energy it needs for evolution. And the Pokédex tells us that it used to be believed that Silcoon would just endure hunger and not consume anything while it was waiting to evolve. But it turns out that's not entirely true, because Silcoon will actually suckle on little bits of rainwater that collect on its cocoon. And that's it. Drinking little bits of rainwater for the entire time. No eating, barely any moving, and constantly watching. You know how they say don't judge a book by its cover? Yeah, this is a good example of that. Pokemon fact number 267. Did you know that Beautifly is a savagely aggressive predator? The Pokedex warns that despite how Beautifly looks, it won't hesitate to stab you. It has a long needle-like mouth, and if it notices prey while collecting pollen, it'll attack them ferociously by jabbing them with its mouth and sucking out their fluids. Beautifly also happens to be incredibly greedy, trying to keep every bit of food for itself. It'll even actively chase away Combee while they try to get nectar. So Beautifly is pretty much pure evil. Thank you if you're one of the people who made eggs for today's Nuzlocke. Pokemon fact number 268. Did you know that Cascoon will have its revenge? Cascoon won't react to any attacks while it's in that shell and stays motionless no matter how badly it's hurt. It does this because if it did move, its body would be weak when it evolves. It just patiently endures attacks, but it will never forget the pain it felt or the appearance of its foes. So try to avoid hurting a Cascoon because we're told that when it does evolve, it finally seeks payback. We've reached the funny number again, but none of the jokes work because the fact's not about Lopunny. Pokemon fact number 269. Did you know that Dustox is an absolute menace? Dustox, like moths, are attracted to lights, so swarms of them are normally drawn to cities, where they will consume every leaf they find in the area. And while that might be a massive ecological problem, there's a bigger issue. One Dustox can put a pro wrestler out of commission because of the toxic scales that it scatters every time it flaps its wings. So never mind an entire swarm of them making their way through populated areas. Pest control in the Pokemon world would be hell. Lotad makes me want a series of Pokemon nature documentaries. Why isn't that a thing yet? Pokemon fact number 270. Did you know that Lotad can't live on land? But not for the reason you think. It's nothing to do with being able to breathe properly or anything like that. It's actually because its leaf is so big, it can't move on land properly. So it floats along in ponds and lakes, and even ferries other Pokemon across water with its giant leaf head. If its water source dries up, the leaf will start to wilt and die. But don't worry, Lotad just becomes weak if its leaf dies. So luckily in these rare occasions, it'll struggle its way onto land to search for new water. An Egglocke is like a Nuzlocke, except I can only use unknown Pokemon hatched from eggs that were given to me by viewers. Pokemon fact number 271. Did you know that Lombre loves messing with people? Lombre becomes active at night and is said to have a mischievous personality, so it likes jumping out of rivers to startle people. And if it spots fishing lines, it starts pulling on them to mess with fishermen. But nothing is as weird as hearing this from the Pokedex. It feels horribly unpleasant to be touched by this Pokemon's hands. Lombre is often mistaken for a child. I hope for everyone's sake those two pieces of information aren't related. Pilk. I've heard a lot about it. That's not bad. Pokemon fact number 272. Did you know that Ludicolo's cells react to music? If Ludicolo ever hears an upbeat or cheerful rhythm, it immediately breaks into dance. It won't even stop dancing in the face of tough opponents. What's interesting though is that all the cells of its body become stimulated. Its muscles fill with energy and it gets more powerful. The Pokedex even goes out of its way to tell us that when dancing in a battle, it exhibits an amazing amount of power. I mean, that explains why I lost so much to Mirror B as a child. I think Seedot should get a regional variant based on Poison Oak. Pokemon fact number 273. Did you know that Seedot loves scaring Pidgey? Seedot is said to look absolutely identical to acorns when it doesn't move. It likes to polish its body with leaves, giving it a nice glossy finish, and even attaches itself to trees using the top of its head to absorb nutrients. Seedot absorbs nutrients until it becomes too heavy and plops to the ground. And they also love scaring the hell out of Pidgey because they try to eat them. To be fair, it does say that it likes to scare any Pokemon that pecks at it, but I like that the Fire Red entry specifically calls out Pidgey. I hate that I can't help but notice Nuzleaf's nipples. My eyes just get drawn to them. Pokemon fact number 274. Did you know that Nuzleaf has one big weakness, and it's not its nipples? So Nuzleaf lives in forests and loves terrifying people by pulling the leaf out of its head and using it as a flute. For some reason, the sound strikes fear and unease into the hearts of people. But don't worry, that massive nose is its weak spot. If you're able to pinch it and hold it like that, it can't use its powers. And you know, once its powers are gone, it's only 3'3". Beat its ass. I hope everyone's been visited by Delibird and not the other one. Pokemon fact number 276. Did you know that Tailo will fight anything except hunger? It's surprising to learn that Tailo is actually kind of a badass, since they'll regularly take on Skarmory. Skarmory is 5'7". Tailo is 1 foot tall. So the fact it's not just swallowed is pretty surprising. But there is one thing that Tailo can't handle. If it starts to get hungry, it not only becomes weak, it also just starts crying loudly. Is Yokai Watch still a thing? I feel like a few years ago it was getting popular, then it just disappeared. Pokemon fact number 277. Did you know that Swellow is known as the swallow Pokemon? Yeah. So in the real world, swallows are a type of bird. But I know what Monty Python fans are wondering. Is Swellow based on a European or an African swallow? Well, neither. It seems to be based on either a barn swallow, which is found pretty much worldwide, or a Pacific swallow, which, funnily enough, is from the South Pacific. So I wonder if anyone in the comments could tell me the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow. Here's a reminder that after 20 years, Mr. Briny is still chasing his Wingull Pico around that table. Pokemon fact number 278. Did you know that Wingull hunts one of the most feared Pokemon? Fishermen find Wingull extremely useful. When they spot them circling above the open ocean, it means there are plenty of fish Pokemon underneath, and this could potentially be very dangerous, considering what Wingull's favorite food is. Wishy-Washy. And yeah, while alone, Wishy-Washy is extremely weak, but I don't think I'd want to risk running into the school form, considering even Gyarados will flee from it. By the time this video goes up, I should have landed in Japan, unless for some reason the plane went down, which would make this really morbid. Pokemon fact number 279. Did you know that Pelipper is a bit of a throat goat? Pelipper having such a massive beak means it can do quite a few things with it, like transporting its eggs or small Pokemon, storing food, or guzzling down 30 Wishy-Washy at a time. For some reason, the Pokedex tells us that Pelipper's beak is big enough to fit a small child. And also that when it does transport small Pokemon, nobody knows where it's taking them. Look, everyone's worried about Drifloon and Hypno taking their kids away. Turns out we should have been watching out for Pelipper. I did a poll for whether people preferred Gardevoir, Lopunny, or Muck. As I should have expected, Gardevoir won with 45% of the vote. Muck came second with 37%. Degenerates. Pokemon fact number 280. Did you know that Ralts avoids sad people? So Ralts is an empath. It's like a telepath, but instead of thoughts, it can sense emotions. The horns on its head let it absorb the feelings of people and Pokemon. And if it senses nice, warm feelings, it'll get happy. In Legends Arceus, Professor Laventon tells us that Ralts prefers humans with chipper dispositions and avoids gloomy people. So if you're sad and gloomy and just need someone there to feel less lonely, Ralts sure won't care. Tomorrow's fact is about Gardevoir. I haven't been this worried about the potential comments in a video since Vaporeon. Pokemon fact number 281. Did you know that Kirlia can tear the fabric of reality? Yes, this 2-foot-tall little psychic thing can cause rips in dimensions. Fueled by the positive emotions of its trainer, Kirlia uses its psychokinetic powers to distort space and see into the future. While doing this, the air around Kirlia becomes distorted, and it creates hallucinations of non-existent things. Professor Laventon even says that it projects visions of paradise. What does that even mean? Now, I know people are gonna get all bricked up in the comments, but we've got some serious physics to talk about. Pokemon fact number 282. Did you know that Gardevoir, mommy, will distort dimensions to make a black hole? If Gardevoir's trainer's in danger, it uses every bit of psychic power it has to protect them. Its massive psychokinetic powers allow Gardevoir to bend the fabric of reality to create a small black hole. A lot of people have issues with this and think it proves that the Pokedex is wrong. This creature can distort dimensions and can just choose to ignore the effects of gravity. It's already breaking the laws of physics. I think it's fair to say it can probably choose how it breaks them. Checkmate, lions. Pokemon fact number 283. Did you know that Surskit produces a liquid that people like to put on bread? The way Surskit skates around on water is by producing a special oil from its feet. But that isn't the stuff that people like to eat. That's actually the thick, sugary syrup that it produces from the tip of its head. Surskit normally secretes this when it's in danger, not like humans, who, I assume, will scare the hell out of Surskit until they're ready to milk.
Well, this is pretty convenient.
Pokemon fact number 284. Did you know that Masquerain can't fly in the rain? Oh, also those things that look like big eyes aren't its wings. Those are its antennae. I don't know why that makes me so uncomfortable. Well, anyway, Masquerain's 4 wings are unfortunately very absorbent. When it's caught in the rain, it soaks up water and becomes too heavy to fly, which is a shame because apparently it flies really well. A few Pokedex entries even compare it to a helicopter. It can hover and fly in any direction, even sideways and backwards. Cool. Hey, does Shroomish play League of Legends? Because it's pretty toxic. Pokemon fact number 285. Did you know that Shroomish will cause your entire body to be in pain? When this little mushroom creature isn't feasting on compost and rotting leaves, it's shaking its spores around. And those spores are pretty dangerous. In fact, they're so toxic, they cause surrounding trees and weeds to die. So to be fair, if the only thing that happens after inhaling them is your entire body being in agony, I think it's lucky that it's not much worse. I mean, think about it. You could end up like Parasect. Pokemon fact number 286. Did you know that Breloom fights better than a pro boxer? Even if we forget about the dangerous spores that constantly spray from its body, Breloom would be terrifying to fight. Not only do its arms stretch, but its fighting technique and footwork are said to put boxers to shame. Its punches can be so quick that they're invisible, and when you do combine that with all of the weird spores it produces, that gives it a few options when it comes to paralyzing you. Use Stun Spore to paralyze you, or just break your spine. Pokemon fact is back. Pokemon fact number 287. Did you know that Slakoth's heart rate is 1? That's right, everything about Slakoth is lazy. It spends 20 hours a day doing nothing. Just sleeps constantly to the point that it's rare to see it move. Kinda like my Pokemon fact upload schedule. Speaking of which, in honor of Slakoth being delayed for over a month, I chose Slakoth for my coffee when I visited the Pokemon Cafe. So yeah, I really need to trim myself up. I'm starting to look like hipster Jesus. Pokemon fact number 288. Did you know that if Vigoroth can't keep moving, its blood boils? It can't sit still even for a moment without its blood becoming agitated. It's constantly hungry and it can't even sleep without going on full wild rages all day. When it's not moving, Vigoroth's stress levels rise, and too much stress makes it feel sick. So once it does finally tire itself out enough to sleep, it just gets stressed out and agitated all over again. I bet Slaking has a huge dick. Pokemon fact number 289. Did you know that Slaking is the world's laziest Pokemon? A lot of people would think Snorlax would have taken this spot, but no. Slaking is somehow even lazier. Slaking lives its life lying on its side. It absolutely refuses to move until it eats all of the grass within its reach. When all the grass is gone, it reluctantly rolls over and moves to another patch. Entire hordes of Slaking can be found lying under trees waiting for fruit to come into season, so it can lie there and let the fruit fall right next to it instead of just getting up. Now, to be fair, there's a reason for it to be this lazy, and that's that all this lounging around is so that it can save all of its energy for when it needs to strike back with horrifying power. Like most Pokemon fans, Nincada can't actually learn the move Attract. Pokemon fact number 290. Did you know that Nincada waits in the dark underground for 10 years? Yes, these weird insect Pokemon absorb nutrients and stay motionless while waiting to evolve for around a decade. And while this sounds like a weird fictional quirk that was made up just for Nincada, this actually comes from the real-life animal it's based on, the cicada. One genus of cicada spends their lives as an underground nymph for up to 17 years before it emerges. So in this case, the animal a Pokemon is based off of is more interesting than the Pokemon itself. Ninjask, more like Ninjask you to be my Valentine with Riz. Pokemon fact number 291. Did you know that Ninjask is too fast to see? So trying to figure out how fast something needs to be for it not to be seen is a lot harder than you'd expect. A lot of it has to do with how far away and how big an object is. As an example, you can easily see the moon in the sky, even though it orbits the Earth at over 2,000 miles per hour. But a rough guide would be that Ninjask needs to be fast enough not to stay in your field of vision for more than a millisecond, or its shape could be deciphered by your eyes. Depending on how far away Ninjask is, that could mean it goes a few hundred miles an hour, or several 100,000. But seeing as how Ninjask for most of Pokemon history was thought to be invisible, I'd say it's probably pretty fast. Ooh, I got my soul sucked out by the Shedussi. Pokemon fact number 292. Did you know that Shedinja will just appear in one of your Pokeballs? Normally, Nincada evolves into Ninjask and that's about it. Nothing special happens unless you have a spare slot in your party and a spare Pokeball. If you do, then Shedinja, this discarded shell of a Pokemon that doesn't move ever, just shows up in your spare Pokeball. And that's not just a game mechanic. Even the Pokedex mentions how weird it is. Well, it mentions that in the fact it's meant to steal your soul when you stare into its hole. I relate to Whismur a lot because I also want to scream. Pokemon fact number 293. Did you know that Whismur is as loud as a jet engine? Normally, Whismur is very quiet. Apparently, you can barely even hear it until it gets scared. At which point, it'll produce a sound of 140 decibels. Instant ear damage kicks in at about 120. And it can continue screaming pretty much forever because Whismur can breathe through its ear canals. Never needs to stop to take a breath. And it won't stop screaming for quite a while, since their own screams scare them and cause them to scream even more. It might surprise you that the fact about Loudred is that it's loud. Pokemon fact number 294. Did you know that Loudred can blow up a house with its voice? Loudred is so loud that it makes itself temporarily deaf when it screams at opponents. Nothing in the Pokedex tells us how loud it is, but it's probably louder than Whismur, which screams as loud as a jet engine. It's not even the volume that's dangerous about Loudred, it's the air pressure. Because when this thing screams, it blasts out enough air to tip over trucks and blow apart wooden houses. Which means Loudred not only produces a scream that's louder than a jet engine, but that also blasts out air at about 110 miles per hour. I wish I knew Hank Green to help with the earthquake information. Pokemon fact number 295. Did you know that Exploud is so loud, it creates earthquakes? Now, to be fair, this would be less about the decibels of an Exploud and more to do with the sound frequency of its screams. So I tried looking up if there was any consensus on the frequency or decibels produced by earthquakes, but I couldn't really find anything. What I did find was information on the earthquake machine that Nikola Tesla supposedly patented in 1893. It was actually an electromechanical oscillator that he said caused a localized earthquake in New York by vibrating at a certain frequency. I don't know if it was ever confirmed, but it's good that the idea lives on with Exploud. What Pokemon would you pick to help you in whatever job or hobby you're into? You can comment below, it helps the video do well. Pokemon fact number 296. Did you know that Makuhita lives the life of a sumo wrestler? A lot like sumos, Makuhita is very dedicated. Its daily routine revolves around eating lots of food, getting lots of rest, and rigorous training. Feel rumbling in a cave? It's probably a Makuhita. Oh, you're wandering around its nest? You'll just find a bunch of snapped trees. The Pokedex even mentions a stew that trainers can make to raise strong Makuhitas, which is a reference to chanko nabe, a Japanese stew commonly eaten by sumo wrestlers in vast quantities as part of their weight gain diet. Apparently there's no fixed recipe for chanko nabe, it just kind of includes whatever's available to cook. I mean, I didn't realize Hariyama were native to Ohio. Pokemon fact number 297. Did you know that Hariyama will try to fight trains? So Hariyama is all about testing its strength, and it'll do this by challenging other big beefy things, mostly other large Pokemon, but also trains. Yep, Hariyama will stand on train tracks and stop oncoming trains with a single arm thrust. But it isn't just locomotives that Hariyama has an issue with, because we're also told it sends 10-ton trucks flying. Luckily, as Hariyamas get older, they focus less on testing their own strength and refocus to train groups of Makuhita. What would everyone prefer? A video on the Pokemon Center in Tokyo Skytree Town, or the Nintendo store in Shibuya? Pokemon fact number 298. Did you know that Azurill uses its tail to fly like Thor? So back in Pokemon Ruby, we're given a little entry that tells us that Azurill will spin its tail and throw it, and the momentum sends its body flying. A lot like Thor with Mjolnir. Unlike Thor, it gets just a little less distance, with the record for Azurill traveling like this being a hefty 33 feet. Also, if you like the content, check out my Patreon. You get your name in the credits, and it helps me create more content. I like that in Pokemon Go, Nosepass will always spawn facing north. Pokemon fact number 299. Did you know that Nosepass uses its magnetism to feed on prey? So Nosepass is a Pokemon that at first glance seems pretty basic. Its nose always points north, like a compass. Well, the Pokedex lets us know that it uses that magnetism to pull in prey, which means, weirdly enough, even though in-game it's weak to steel types, in the lore, it feeds on them. Its magnetic pull also gets stronger when the weather's cold, which is a real-life thing that happens to actual magnets. And unfortunately for Nosepass, it can never look another Nosepass in the face, because their noses would repel each other. I mean, that's a big L for the magnetic Riz. I can't believe I've made 300 of these videos. And of course, number 300 is about breeding. Pokemon fact number 300. Did you know that Skitty can breed with Wailord? This one's a pretty well-known fact at this point. People even made the acronym HSOWA for Hot Skitty on Wailord Action. Look, who am I to judge? But the reason why this can happen in the games is because both Skitty and Wailord belong to the same egg group, the Field Egg Group. So Pokemon that share the same egg group can produce eggs together. The egg produced will always be whatever the female Pokemon in the pair was. So a male Skitty and a female Wailord would produce a Wailmer. A male Wailord and a female Skitty would... Jesus. Delcatty's one of those Pokemon where it's really hard to find a fact about them, because they're boring. Pokemon fact number 301. Did you know that Delcatty is genuinely just a cat? One of its first Pokédex entries was about it wanting to live its life without being bothered, doing whatever it pleases and at its own pace. It doesn't have a nest because it just sleeps wherever it feels comfortable. It naps throughout the day. Its design even looks like it has a neck pillow, so it can just fall asleep wherever without worrying about its neck, I guess. I've never really liked Delcatty, but apparently it's very popular in the Pokemon world. Trainers like it because of its nice fur. UFO sightings. Are they aliens? Probably not, but apparently they might be related to Sableye. Pokemon fact number 302. Did you know that Sableye looks a lot like the Hopkinville Goblins? The Hopkinville Goblin case was a claimed close encounter with aliens by the Kelly family in Kentucky back in 1955. 5 adults and 7 children from the same family arrived at the Hopkinville police station claiming they had been attacked in their home by 12 to 15 small aliens and that they had been holding them off with gunfire for 4 hours. So how does this relate to Sableye? Well, this is Sableye, and this is apparently what a Hopkinville goblin would have looked like. So yeah, it's likely that Sableye was inspired by these goblins. So who thinks Megas are gonna come back in the Scarlet and Violet DLC? Pokemon fact number 303. Did you know that Mawile is very similar to a type of Japanese monster, the Futakuchi Onna, which, as you could guess because of Mawile, means two-mouthed woman. It's a creature that looks like a normal woman, but with a demonic mouth hidden on the back of its head. A typical folktale about the creature would usually involve some miserly guy, hates spending money, marrying a certain woman only because she ate the least amount of food in the village. Then it turns out, oh, the demon mouth on the back of their head is why it seemed like they didn't need to eat. Because when nobody was looking, her hair tendrils would feed the mouth on the back of her head. The story is pretty similar to how Mawile would lower its enemies' defenses by looking cute and innocent, then swallowing them whole with its jaws that look like hair. So it turns out Hariyama's not the only Pokemon that hates trains. Pokemon fact number 304. Did you know that Aron will eat railroad tracks and cars and bridges? Normally, Aron lives deep in the mountains where it feeds on iron ore. Iron ore what?
You suck!
But in the Pokemon world, it's actually a pest. Because if Aron can't find iron in the mountains, they'll come down in search of food, which leads to them eating things like railroad tracks. And if you're thinking, hey, they're only about, what, a foot tall? And 132 pounds isn't that heavy, just move them. Well, that's not the best idea, because this little creature is strong enough to demolish a dump truck with a tackle, which it will then eat afterwards. Laron's favorite kind of music is heavy metal. Pokemon fact number 305. Did you know that Laron is very territorial? I would not like to work in the mines in the Pokemon world, mostly because of Steelix, but also because of this 264 pounds of territorial steel. Laron is said to actively clash with humans mining iron ore. To be fair, it needs it to live. And it also fights with other Laron, with the sounds of their collisions ringing for miles. When it's not fighting over its territory, it just likes showing off its strength anyway, because it'll smash against giant boulders to create as many sparks as possible. The more sparks, the stronger its body is. What Pokemon do you think Batman would choose? Pokemon fact number 306. Did you know that Aggron is the Batman of the mountains? A lot like Batman with Gotham, Aggron claims an entire mountain as its territory. It vigilantly patrols its mountain at all times, and it mercilessly beats anything that violates its environment. If Aggron's territory is ravaged by some kind of natural disaster, it'll bring soil up to the area, plant trees, and beautifully restore the entire place. Kinda like how Batman will open up a school with his money after beating muggers all night. This fact was recorded a few days before the Pokemon Presents announcements. I hope we got a Pokemon Coliseum sequel. Hey, this is me from the current time. Yeah, we didn't get one. Pokemon fact number 307. Did you know that Meditite is so good at yoga that it can fly? Meditite's training is extremely strict. It never misses a workout and survives on eating just one berry every day. Apparently, by enduring hunger, it's sharpened its mind and its spiritual energy to the point where it levitates while it meditates. Seems unfair that Meditite gets powers from going on a diet when I just get tired and a little grumpy. So if I do yoga workouts, do I also end up with thighs like Medicham? Pokemon fact number 308. Did you know that Medicham starves itself? So sure, its pre-evolution Meditite survives on one berry a day, but Medicham isn't some little baby. It goes the full hog. Medicham will meditate without eating for an entire month. You might think, hey, maybe that's just how much this Pokemon needs to eat. Not true. The Pokedex tells us it gained the power to see auras and achieved a sixth sense through starvation. I mean, I'd like to see a mechanic where if Medicham eats a berry in battle, it loses its ability. This fact was a doozy. Pokemon fact number 309. Did you know that Electrike is so fast, your eyes can't follow it? Alright, so just like Ninjask, it's very hard to figure out the speed that Electrike can run at. The Pokedex specifically says that Electrike is faster than the human eye can follow. Follow is the key word here. Smooth pursuit is when your eyes actually lock on and follow the object that it's tracking. The upper limit for humans tracking movement this way is a maximum pivot of 100 degrees in 1 second. So if we take faster than the eye can follow as faster than smooth pursuit, it means that Electrike needs to run faster than your eyes can pivot by 100 degrees. And that completely depends on the distance Electrike is from you. Given its size, and if you had perfect vision on an open field, we could see Electrike up to about 6 kilometers away. So the minimum speed Electrike would need to travel to be faster than their eyes can follow would be 20,579.8 miles per hour. You know, roughly. Imagine how durable this thing would be, that it doesn't just disintegrate. Pokemon fact number 310. Did you know that Manectric is as fast as lightning? Oh, so you thought Electrike was fast. Well, what if I told you that Manectric is over 10 times faster? Electrike's already faster than the eye can follow, and the Pokedex tells us that Manectric is as fast as a lightning bolt. That means that Manectric can run at speeds of about 270,000 miles per hour. That's faster than any object ever created by humans. Nearly twice the speed of that one manhole cover from the Plumbob nuclear test, which went at a sluggish 150,000 miles per hour. If you were a burglar, which Pokemon would be your partner in crime? Pokemon fact number 311. Did you know that Plusle targets telephone poles? So Plusle is one of 2 cheerleader Pokemon. It produces sparks from its hands like pom-poms for cheering on its friends. And to do this, it needs to use quite a bit of electricity. How does it get the electricity? Oh, it just causes massive infrastructure disturbances by climbing to the top of telephone poles to drain their power. Imagine a burglar had a Plusle as its Pokemon. Not only would it stop the targets from calling the police, but it would cheer on the burglar as it beat their victims. Why didn't they just have shiny Plusle and Minun swap colors, instead of Plusle just being slightly darker red and Minun being mint green? Pokemon fact number 312. Did you know that Minun cares more about cheerleading than living? I mean, don't get me wrong, Minun's very good at cheering things on. In fact, exposure to electricity from Plusle and Minun increases blood circulation and relaxes muscles. I wonder if they ban those Pokemon from being near sporting events. It's kinda like doping. But anyway, the Pokedex tells us that it cares more about cheering on its friends than its own safety. So sure, you might be able to take down Minun, but the Metagross it just boosted, probably not. Oh, that smells like... Pokemon fact number 313. Did you know that Volbeat loves to sniff Illumise? So Volbeat's Pokedex entries focus on one of 3 things. 1, their tails light up and they draw shapes in the night sky. 2, they only nest near clean water and will move their entire nest if it becomes dirty. And 3, they absolutely love Illumise's sweet aroma. So hey, if you ever want to catch a bunch of Volbeat, just lure them in with a rag you've rubbed on an Illumise. So I have to issue an apology. Last episode, I kept saying Illumise instead of how it's actually pronounced, Illumise. Pokemon fact number 314. Did you know that Illumise doesn't just attract 1 or 2 Volbeat, it attracts full swarms? So yes, the Pokedex lets us know that with Illumise's scent, it basically dictates full swarms of Volbeat. It leads the Volbeat to form geometric shapes in the night sky, and they'll follow an Illumise around wherever it goes. You'll see similar interactions from people following cosplayers at conventions, but instead of leading a group, it's more like running from them. I'm not a big fan of Roselia, but I do like its shiny. Pokemon fact number 315. Did you know that Roselia has to defend itself from having its arms stolen? Back in Pokemon Ruby, we get to learn that Roselia will shoot sharp thorns at anything that tries to steal its flowers. Considering that these are basically Roselia's hands, that's pretty messed up. Especially when it's likely that humans are the things it's protecting itself from. As Professor Leventon tells us that in his homeland, it was tradition to send Roselia thorns to your enemy to challenge them to a duel. Gulpin, don't mind if I do. Pokemon fact number 316. Did you know that Gulpin is all stomach? And that's literal. Virtually its entire body is a stomach. In fact, to make space, its brain and heart are extremely small, and the enzymes that are contained in its stomach are able to dissolve anything. While it digests things, Gulpin is said to produce vile, disgusting, overpowering gases. So it's not the most pleasant Pokemon. For some reason, the Pokedex keeps mentioning that Swalot is able to swallow tires. Pokemon fact number 317. Did you know that Swalot weakens its prey by dissolving it? Extremely toxic fluids are produced by every pore on Swalot's body, and it sprays this fluid at prey to weaken it. So whatever's trying to escape from it slowly dissolves until it can't run away anymore. At that point, Swalot swallows its prey whole, and the Pokedex is sure to mention that it doesn't have any teeth, meaning whatever gets swallowed just gets slowly melted to death. What's your favorite fish Pokemon? Pokemon fact number 318. Did you know that Carvanha is a little wussy? Carvanha have a reputation for being ferocious and dangerous, but when this aggressive watery wuss bag is by itself, it turns into a coward that won't even hunt prey on its own. Even so, when about 5 or more of these Pokemon are together, they become terrifying. Their jaws have the power to tear out boat hulls, and it's notorious for sinking many, many boats in the Pokemon world. So sailors will avoid Carvanha dens at all costs. Also, just letting everyone know I've started streaming again on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Sharpedo used to be banned from online trades because of its name in English, and it's not because of the Char part. Pokemon fact number 319. Did you know that Sharpedo is an ocean demon? This thing is such a terrifying predator that being called the bully of the sea is an unbelievable understatement. It can swim through waters at 75 miles per hour. Its teeth, if they're somehow broken, grow back immediately, and if any ship enters its ocean territory, it gets attacked without exception. And this is scarier than it sounds because just one Sharpedo can tear apart a super tanker. These things make the Titanic look like a baby. Knowing all this, it's crazy to think that humans in the Pokemon world used to thoroughly overfish Sharpedo just to try and eat its dorsal fin. In a roundabout way, Wailmer is one of the most bloodthirsty Pokemon. Pokemon fact number 320. Did you know that Wailmer used to live on land? Pokemon Ultra Moon tells us that due to the memories of when they once lived on land, pods of Wailmers will wash up on shore, where they'll bounce around on the beach like bouncy balls. But look, not everything about Wailmer is playful. It does hunt for food. Specifically, it hunts down Wishy-Washy, and it consumes 1 ton of them per day, which means Wailmer eats around 3,000 Wishy-Washy every single day. Game Freak were cowards for not making a Gigantamax Wailord. Pokemon fact number 321. Did you know that Wailord is lighter than air? Some people have noticed that when you calculate Wailord's size versus its weight, it ends up being less dense than air. People seem to think that this is a mistake, but if you look at Wailord's category in the Pokedex, it's known as the Float Whale Pokemon. Coupled with the fact that it looks like a blimp, this is probably intentional. So why don't we see it flying in the sky? Well, looking at Wailmer's Pokedex entries, Wailmer fills itself with water to bounce around. So Wailord is probably just filled with water, weighing itself down enough to live in the sea. Female Nummels have bigger humps. I'll let you decide what to do with that info. Pokemon fact number 322. Did you know that Nummel is surprisingly strong? So Nummel weighs about 52 pounds, which is pretty light, especially considering how much it can carry. Humans in the Pokemon world are said to have used Nummels to transport up to 220-pound loads. It gets its power from the seething cauldron of boiling magma that is its hump. It's just too bad that for such a useful Pokemon, it's also said to be very dim-witted. Looks like there's some competition for Magcargo. Pokemon fact number 323. Did you know that Camerupt is the same temperature as Magcargo? That's right, this volcanic camel contains magma that's a toasty 18,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Hotter than the surface of the sun, just like Magcargo. Camerupt is said to have a major volcanic eruption from the humps on its back every 10 years, or whenever it becomes enraged. But that's actually kind of convenient since Camerupt live inside volcanoes. So you wouldn't really know if it was the Pokemon erupting or the mountain. I decided to cut my own hair. To be fair, it has been a year. Pokemon fact number 324. Did you know that Torkoal needs coal to stay alive? Torkoal is a tortoise-like creature that burns coal in its shell, like a furnace. It'll search through its mountainous habitats, all for those precious fossil fuels. You can tell how healthy it is based on the amount of smoke coming out of its shell. And if it can't get access to coal, it will die. Which begs the question, does Torkoal hunt down Roly-Coly? I finally got into the YouTube partner program, and the first stream I did was demonetized. Because I got drunk for St. Patrick's Day. Starting off strong. Pokemon facts number 325. Did you know that Spoink dies if it stops bouncing? So this one's pretty well known in the Pokemon community. Spoink's heart only continues to beat from the shock of bouncing up and down. It even continues to bounce while sleeping. The pearl on its head isn't required for living, but it does amplify its psychic powers. What I didn't know is that the pearl on its head comes from a clam pearl. How? I don't think I've ever considered Grumpig to be a dancing Pokemon. Pokemon fact number 326. Did you know that Grumpig dances to mind control people? So I never realized that besides the psychic powered pearls, most of Grumpig's psychic powers are channeled from it doing weird dances. Apparently, this dancing style became very popular overseas in the Pokemon world. And in terms of what Grumpig could be inspired by, there's a Bible verse that references not throwing your pearls in front of swine. You know, because pigs wouldn't know how to use pearls of wisdom. Except these swine do know how to use pearls. And they use them to control your mind. The Gen 4 remakes broke Spinda so much you can't even trade them out of those games. Pokemon fact number 327. Did you know that Spinda have 4,294,967,296 potential patterns? The reason for this is because in the Pokemon games, every Pokemon has a hidden value called its encryption constant. Spinda's spot pattern will vary depending on that value, meaning that Spinda has a possibility of over 4 billion patterns. Funnily enough, the Pokedex actually references this. In Heart Gold and Soul Silver, we're told that the chance of 2 Spinda having the exact same patterns is less than 1 in 4 billion. True to the numbers. Trapinch. Careful or I'll trapinch your nipples. Pokemon fact number 328. Did you know that Trapinch is as strong as Flygon? So Trapinch has a 100 base attack stat, which is incredibly high for a Pokemon that's unevolved. So high, in fact, that when it evolves into Vibrava, its attack stat drops to 70. When it finally evolves into Flygon, it just regains its original base attack stat of 100. Very strange, but probably a reference to the fact that real-life antlions aren't usually as aggressive as their baby larval forms, which look like this. A monstrosity. Vibrava, dragon. Charizard, not a dragon. Pokemon fact number 329. Did you know that Vibrava melts its enemies? So Vibrava is mainly known for vibrating its wings instead of using them to fly. This generates ultrasonic sound waves that cause headaches in trainers and fainting in prey. But it turns out that Vibrava also melts large quantities of prey with acid. And, this line is directly from the Pokedex, guzzles them down every day. So what do you think? Does Ground Dragon or Bug Dragon suit Flygon better? Pokemon fact number 330. Did you know that Flygon eats people that get stuck in the desert? Known as the Desert Spirit, Flygon's wings produce a sound that sounds like a woman singing, while also whipping up massive sandstorms. People are said to be lured into these sandstorms by the enchanting sounds, and become Flygon's prey. Even if you can somehow avoid Flygon, they actually work alongside Crocodile. Flygon's sandstorms keep them hidden, and then they'll split any prey that they catch. Cacnea seems to be a golden barrel cactus. Pokemon fact number 331. Did you know that Cacnea can survive for a month without water? So it turns out Cacnea doesn't just look like a cactus, it lives like one. It makes its home in arid locations around the Pokemon world, and its yellow flower only blooms once a year. Funnily enough, the more harsh the environment, the more pretty and fragrant the flower grows. Also, big shout out to my new YouTube members. Helps keep the channel alive, and you get some extra benefits too. I feel like Cacturn's pretty underrated as a creepy Pokemon. But who do you think is the creepiest? Pokemon fact number 332. Did you know that Cacturn stalks people through the desert? So Cacturn lives in the desert, but it's not active during the day. It waits to come out at night. In Pokemon Sapphire, we're told that anyone traveling in the desert through the black of night, exhausted from the heat during the day, will be followed by a ragtag group of Cacturn. They don't chase you down, attack you. There's not even a confrontation. Instead, they bide their time waiting for travelers to become so tired they can no longer move. We're told in later games it actually seeks out prey like this. So yeah, gangs of Cacturn full on eat people who get lost in the desert. Most people have some kind of horrifying fact about them, but you can take this one as a little break. Pokemon fact number 333. Did you know that Swablu likes to pretend to be a hat? Absolutely obsessed with keeping things clean, Swablu uses its fluffy cotton wings as swabs to clean up anything that's dirty. It has a habit of dunking itself in streams to wash off any of the dirt its wings collect, so it'd be really handy having a Swablu if you can't keep your room clean. They also have the strange urge to sit on people's heads and act like a fluffy hat, so it'll keep your head warm and clean your house. It's a good bonus. Altaria is probably one of the least dragony dragon types, but which one is your favorite? Pokemon fact number 334. Did you know that Altaria is a soothing, gentle Pokemon that shows no mercy? So most of the information on Altaria is about its beautiful soprano singing voice, its kind, gentle disposition, and the fact that songs make you feel like you're floating on fluffy clouds. And the other bits are about it shooting out intensely hot fireballs from its mouth. And even though it's really friendly, if it's provoked, it'll threaten you with shrill screaming before attacking you without mercy. You know, on second thoughts, it's pretty dragony. I can't help but see Zangoose as a very edgelord Pokemon. Pokemon fact number 335. Did you know that Zangoose hates a viper so much, it's hardwired into their DNA? So just like real-world mongoose that hunt and kill venomous snakes, Zangoose can't seem to stop attacking Sevipers. Its first ever Pokedex entry tells us that its memories of fighting its arch-rival Seviper are etched into every cell in its body. And it is well suited to fighting Seviper, seeing as how both of its in-game abilities make it stronger against poison types. Immunity makes it immune to being poisoned, and Toxic Boost makes its physical moves stronger while being poisoned. Nothing personal, kid. I wish I had the blind confidence of the Pokemon English dub. Pokemon fact number 336. Did you know that Seviper is the evolved form of Arbok? Except not really. So this comes from a very strange error in the English dub of the Pokemon anime. The feature Pokemon Trainer's Choice would ask trivia between ad breaks, and it got a lot of stuff wrong. The most infamous one of these is when it asked which Pokemon evolved into Seviper: Sableye, Arbok, or Suicune. Of course, we all know the answer's Arbok. Except that Seviper doesn't have any evolutions, and this is just completely wrong. Why weren't Lunatone and Solrock involved in Sun and Moon? Pokemon fact number 337. Did you know that Lunatone was only discovered 40 years ago? So strangely enough, Pokemon Emerald tells us that Lunatone just kind of showed up one day 40 years ago. Discovered at the site where a meteor hit, most people theorize that Lunatone came from space. Except that nobody's been able to prove it. They do know that it has some sort of link to the moon, since its health and level of power changes with the moon's phases. And unrelated to all of this is the fact that its glowing red eyes are said to cause anyone who sees them to be frozen in fear. Write your most cringy Discord kitten-esque comment below, and I'll read it as one of these intros. Pokemon fact number 338. Did you know that Solrock is said to have come from the sun? So sometimes the people in the Pokemon world aren't exactly the smartest, and they do seem to think that Solrock comes from the sun. And I mean, to be fair, it does look like a sun. It commonly holds sunstones, and when it spins, it lights up and gives off intense heat, like a sun. But let me make this clear. The Pokedex does not claim that Solrock comes from the sun. It states that it is said by people to have come from the sun, which is a completely factual statement. Chalk that up as another W for the Pokedex is accurate and not written by children club. Would you rather fight a Barboach or a dummy mommy? There's no link between those things, but hey, gotta manipulate the algorithm somehow, right? Pokemon fact number 339. Did you know that Barboach is a slippy, slimy boy? So Barboach is absolutely covered in slime, and it uses that to escape from danger. Can't eat it if you can't grip it. It experiences pretty much everything through its antenna. Taste, sight, smell, all of it. It's basically a tongue with built-in radar. Even though Barboach sounds like it's a loach, given its evolution Whiscash, it's likely a loach catfish. Similar, but a little different. Which would you rather fight, Whiscash or Johnny Cash? Pokemon fact number 340. Did you know that Whiscash is based on a Japanese myth about a catfish that causes earthquakes? So you might be thinking, hold on, you're telling me that this catfish Pokemon that causes earthquakes is probably based on a mythological catfish that also causes earthquakes? Sounds a little far-fetched. But yes, the Namazu, a giant underground catfish, which was supposedly trapped under a giant stone by the god Takamikazuchi. It's said that when Takamikazuchi lets his guard down, the catfish is able to wriggle around, which is what causes earthquakes. Like Whiscash. So do you want to see hot, steamy action? Well then, become a YouTube channel member. I mean, maybe not steamy. Pokemon fact number 341. Did you know that Corphish is not native to Hoenn? So yes, this little crustaceous ruffian debuted in the Hoenn region during Generation 3 of the Pokemon games. But the Pokedex tells us it's not actually native to that region. They were imported from overseas as a pet. And through being released by people who didn't want them anymore, they absolutely exploded population-wise, and now inhabit practically any body of water you can find, which isn't a surprise considering it's said to be able to survive in the filthiest, dirtiest water possible. This fact is a pretty daunting one. What am I doing with my life? Pokemon fact number 342. Did you know that Crawdaunt causes ponds to become devoid of life? Yeah, so Crawdaunt's actually an extremely violent Pokemon. Crawdaunt's very hard to raise with a brutal disposition. But the reason the ponds they call their homes are deserted, desolate places is because other life forms refuse to live near Crawdaunt. Probably to do with its constant urge to challenge all living things to battle. Oh, and if you're crazy enough to take it down to try and eat its succulent claw meat, you'll be disappointed to find that the meat of the claws is actually utterly disgusting and stinks like hell. Hello, my little kittens. Daddy's back from his potty break. I couldn't stop thinking about you the whole time. Now who wants to take turns crawling on my lap and purring like a good little kitty? Pokemon fact number 343. Did you know that Baltoy loves ancient ruins and graveyards? So yes, Baltoy, besides just spinning around, constantly balancing on that 1 foot thing, really enjoys gathering around ancient ruins. But not just ancient ruins. The Pokedex tells us you can find a lot of them around old graveyards. Why? We have no clue. What we do know is that when large groups of Baltoy see each other, they all start loudly crying in unison. Just like everyone's reaction to today's intro. I got ChatGPT to create a pun for this video's intro. Here it is. Why did the clay doll go to the art museum? To see all the clay exhibits and feel right at home. That's not a pun. Pokemon fact number 344. Did you know that Claydol was created in honor of something that came from the sky? So yes, in the Pokemon world, this living doll of clay created by an ancient civilization doesn't just fire lasers from its hands and melt in the rain. It is also said to be modeled after something that descended from the sky. What in the hell descended from the sky that looked like this? So sure, Claydol might have been created in the image of a biblically accurate angel, but also Claydolls themselves are all about 20,000 years old. Terrifying. You know, what all the extinct Pokemon that end up getting revived? I'm just shocked there hasn't been irreparable damage done to the Pokemon world's ecosystems. Pokemon fact number 345. Did you know that Lileep has been extinct for the last 100 million years? So yes, like a lot of other fossil Pokemon, Lileep was originally extinct before it was brought kicking and screaming back into the modern world. How did they do this? I don't know, some kind of Jurassic Park science. Or as the Pokedex says it was done, scientifically and with advanced techniques. Yeah, I'm sure that's ethical. What am I supposed to do when the Cradussy's all full of gastrointestinal acid? Pokemon fact number 346. Did you know that Cradilly can't walk very fast, but it doesn't need to? This prehistoric sea lily has a heavy body that can't move very fast. Same. So it lies in wait for prey, and when they get too close, it strikes with its face tentacles, guzzling them down and dissolving them whole. Also, some big channel news. Do you like Pokemon cards? Do you like money off Pokemon cards? Huh? Well, Troll and Toad, an online store full of everything TCG, was kind enough to give us code ReggieRob5 for 5% off everything on the sidebar merchant items. That's ReggieRob5 for 5% off. Helps me fund the channel, gets you some money off, and if people use the code, maybe they'll overlook me saying Cradussy at the start of the video. What fossil Pokemon's your favorite? Go ahead, fight in the comments. Pokemon fact number 347. Did you know that Anorith does not work well in modern times? This bombastic bug boy thrived in warm oceans 100 million years ago. But the Pokedex lets us know that restored Anoriths that are released into modern oceans do not thrive. And that's down to how much the composition of the oceans have changed over those millions of years. Anorith is also said to be a progenitor. Going by Google's definitions, that either means it's a Pokemon ancestor or it began a cultural move movement like jazz. And I prefer to think that Anorith is the Pokemon world's Buddy Bolden. Big thank you to my patrons and members. And remember to use code ReggieRob5 for 5% off your Troll and Toad orders. I recommend the Lopunny cards. Who do you main in Pokemon Unite? Let me know how much of a loser you are. Pokemon fact number 348. Did you know that Armaldo can punch through steel? This connoisseur of the Cambrian era decided to use its big Pokeball energy to strut its way out of the sea to live on land. It's a very sturdy creature and skewers prey with its claws. Speaking of its claws, they do indeed have the power to punch through a steel slab, which is interesting because game mechanics wise, a bug rock type wouldn't be very good at that. As always, remember to use code ReggieRob5 for 5% off your Troll and Toad order. Maybe pick up a Gardevoir, huh? Do people like watching hate comment videos? Because hey, I could probably dish one up. Pokemon fact number 349. Did you know that Feebas was ridiculously hard to find? Back in Generation 3 during Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, it was an absolute pain in the Feebas to try and find. Despite its Pokedex entry saying it can be found literally anywhere, in reality it could only be found on one route in the entire game. Route 119. Out of the 436 water tiles you can fish on in that route, only 6 of them are capable of spawning Feebas. And on those 6 tiles, it's not even guaranteed. It's 50-50. So even if you found one of the tiles, you might think it's the wrong one because a Feebas hasn't spawned yet. Oh, and the last kick in the teeth? Those 6 tiles out of 436 are random. No looking online for which one's which. And as always, save some money on Pokemon cards by using code ReggieRob5 for 5% off your Troll and Toad order. 15 more facts to make up a full year's worth. Pokemon fact number 350. Did you know that Milotic is the exact opposite of Gyarados? So yeah, the 2 giant serpentine monsters that evolved from useless fish are complete opposites. In times of war, Gyarados shows up to incinerate everything and burn whole cities to the ground. Whereas Milotic in times of war shows up and delivers a pulsing wave of energy that calms everything, stops people's desire to fight, and purifies their hearts. Said to be the most beautiful Pokemon of all. Debatable. Trainers in the Pokemon world that absolutely love Feebas are said to be disappointed when it turns into Milotic. 5% off Pokemon cards? Impossible, right? Wrong! With code ReggieRob5, get 5% off your order at trollandtoad.com. Look, I didn't want to have to say it, but cast form's kinda busty. Pokemon fact number 351. Did you know that cast form has an unexplained connection to the weather? So look, I'm not talking about the way it changes forms when it's sunny, rainy, or snowy. I'm talking about how the Pokedex tells us that during experiments, even when placed in a heater, in a shower, or even in a freezer, cast form didn't change form. Strange that its body has some other link to weather patterns that influences its form. If you want to influence the form of the discount you can get on Pokemon cards, then use code ReggieRob5 for 5% off your Troll and Toad order. Everyone has a word that makes them feel off, like moist or curdle. What word is that for you? Pokemon fact number 352. Did you know that Kecleon can turn completely invisible? Except for one problem. Yes, the Pokemon equivalent of the Invisible Man has one major flaw, and that's its belly. Tell me about it. The zigzag pattern on Kecleon's stomach is the only part of its body that doesn't change color, meaning that despite being mostly perfect at camouflaging itself, you could still tell where it is. You know what else won't be able to hide? The savings you'll get from using code ReggieRob5 for 5% off your Troll and Toad order. What's your favorite ghost type? Huh? Pussy? Pokemon fact number 353. Did you know that Shuppet feeds on vengeance? So good news for League of Legends players. Shuppet feeds on negative emotions. One's filled with malice. They go out at night searching for people with grudges, presumably for a nice negative emotion meal. They love feasting on these feelings so much that they gather in large groups in the eaves of these people's houses. You know what else causes negative emotions? Not saving money on trading cards. So instead, use code ReggieRob5 for 5% off your Troll and Toad order. I cry myself to sleep. Pokemon fact number 354. Did you know that Bayonet were all originally children's toys? Have you ever abandoned a plush or a doll? You better hope not if you're from the Pokemon world, because if you have, it'll develop such strong feelings of hate and grudginess that it'll become a Bayonet. This thing is known for cursing people by sticking pins into its own body, and that zipper on its mouth is said to hold in all of its cursed energy. Oh, and it also wanders the earth searching for the child that abandoned it. If you want to hunt down some savings on Pokemon cards, look no further than code ReggieRob5 for 5% off your Troll and Toad order. Hey, YouTube algorithm, you're killing me, man. Come on. Pokemon fact number 355. Did you know that Duskull loves chasing kids? So there's a bunch of rumors in the Pokemon world that Duskull will spirit away children who misbehave. And while that isn't confirmed, we are told that it loves the crying of children and constantly chases them throughout the entire night. It phases through walls of any thickness, so there's no possible way you can escape. The only way they stop chasing you is by making it to the break of dawn. You can chase down some nice savings on Pokemon cards with code ReggieRob5 for 5% off your order at trollandtoad.com. You know, I always forget to ask people to subscribe and hit the notification bell, and I'm not about to start. Pokemon fact number 356. Did you know that Dusclops is a walking black hole? So you're probably thinking this is meant metaphorically or exaggeratedly, but no. Dusclops absorbs anything, no matter how big it is. When it opens that big old mouth, things just get sucked into the void with no way to escape. Apparently what happens inside is a mystery. Even Professor Laventon says he's too scared to attempt peering through Dusclops' bandages. Look, I understand. I'm terrified of not saving money with code ReggieRob5. Getting 5% off my orders at trollandtoad.com. Who's that Pokemon? Oh, it's depression. Pokemon fact number 357. Did you know that Tropius loves fruit so much its body changed? So the Pokedex tells us this strange flying dinosaur thing ate nothing else but its favorite fruit. And for some reason, this caused the fruit to start growing from Tropius. I mean, it's never mentioned, but come on. They're bananas. I guess it's true what they say, you are what you eat. And if you'd like to eat discount codes for Pokemon cards, then you'll love code ReggieRob5. Get 5% off your order at good old Troll and Toad. Who would win in a fight, Chimecho or the BBC Philharmonic Orchestra? Pokemon fact number 358. Did you know that Chimecho is too musical for me to understand? So the Pokedex tells us stuff like, yeah, it makes sound waves to throw people around. You know, the usual. But it also mentions that all Chimecho communicate using 7 distinct sounds. Now, I don't understand enough about music to know if that's significant, but what I did find is that this would likely mean that Chimecho work on a heptatonic or 7-note scale. Not really sure what that means. If you like the sound of saving money on Pokemon cards, try code ReggieRob5 for 5% off at Troll and Toad. Hey, watch out everybody, it's the Edgelord Pokemon. Pokemon fact number 359. Did you know that Absol is hated by old people? That's right, it seems like old people in the Pokemon world weren't very well educated when it comes to Absol. Because Absol shows up trying to warn people about natural disasters it senses, in the past people confused that with Absol being the cause of the disasters. So old people in the Pokemon world just hate Absol. And hey, if you hate missing out on deals, then use code ReggieRob5 for 5% off Troll and Toad. Why not leave a comment with your favorite Pokemon pun? Pokemon fact number 360. Did you know that Wynot travel in herds? That's right, these little Wobbuffet babies live in herds. They'll all roam around picking sweet fruits off trees with their little arm things. But don't you worry, they're also dedicated to toughening themselves up. To do this, the herd will, and this is straight from the Pokedex, squash up against each other in like a little huddle to toughen up their bodies. Why not use code ReggieRob5 for 5% off your order at good old Troll and Toad? Imagine being the snow runt of the litter. Pokemon fact number 361. Did you know that Snorunt can survive in ridiculous temperatures? So yeah, it makes sense that Snorunt can survive in the cold, but it's a little bit surprising to learn it can survive in minus 150 degrees Fahrenheit. That's minus 100 Celsius. What's weirder about that is that it means there's places in the Pokemon world world that drop to that temperature regularly. If you want some ice cold deals on Pokemon cards, then use code ReggieRob5 for 5% off at Troll and Toad. I'm feeling pretty sick at the moment. There's not really a joke here. Pokemon fact number 362. Did you know that Glalie is made of rock, but isn't a rock type? So yeah, we're told by the Pokedex that Glalie's body is actually made of rock. It just covers itself in an armor made of extremely hard ice. And while this might be strange, it doesn't compare to the extremely horrific entries about Glalie's Mega Evolution. When Glalie Mega evolves, the energy breaks its jaw, leaving it hanging open, unable to eat, and spewing endless blizzards. Make sure you don't break the bank by using code ReggieRob5 for 5% off Pokemon cards at good old Troll and Toad. I still feel pretty sick. Pokemon fact number 363. Did you know that Spheal are a bunch of snitches? So this adorable spherical seal Pokemon does spend most of its time on drift ice, just rolling around, but as soon as it spots prey, it immediately informs the Walrein in its herd. I guess in Spheal's world, snitches don't get stitches. Instead, they get discounts on Pokemon cards. Use code ReggieRob5 for 5% off your order at good old Troll and Toad. It'll be a year worth of these videos tomorrow. Pokemon fact number 364. Did you know that Celio balance Spheals like balls? So you know how it's a thing where seals get trained to balance balls on their noses? Yeah, well, Celios just do that by themselves with anything that's round, from Pokeballs to even its spherical pre-evolution Spheal. Not a fan of balls in your face? Maybe you'd prefer code ReggieRob5 for 5% off Pokemon cards at good old Troll and Toad. 365 Pokemon facts. One for every day of the year. Only around 650 left to go. Pokemon fact number 365. Did you know that Walrein could have saved the Titanic? The reason why this blubbery pile of Pokemon could have saved old Leo from drowning is because Walrein are known for crushing icebergs. Yeah, so somehow this thing uses its giant tusks to just decimate the Titanic's natural predator. It's also pretty scary that Walrein tusks commonly break in battle, meaning that in terms of power in the Pokemon world, they're not even that impressive. You can Walrein in some savings on Pokemon cards using code ReggieRob5 at good old Troll and Toad. Pokemon fact number 366. Did you know that Clamperl only makes one pearl in its entire life? That's right, the Pokemon with the word pearl in its name only makes a single pearl during its life. The pearl it makes is said to be magnificent and worth about 10 times that of a Shelder pearl. There's also one other unique thing about these pearls. They amplify psychic powers. I wonder what that could be used for. If you want to save 10 times the worth of a Shelder pearl on Pokemon cards, then use code ReggieRob5 for 5% off at good old Troll and Toad. Huntail, very creative name for something that hunts with its tail. Pokemon fact number 367. Did you know that Huntail washing up on the beach means there's gonna be trouble? So yes, we learned from the Pokedex that according to tradition, when Huntail, who are normally found at the bottom of the ocean, wash up on shore, something unfortunate is gonna happen. So that seems cryptic and very ominous, but it's inspired by real life. The giant oarfish, or what is sometimes called the earthquake fish. And besides looking a lot like Huntail, when these fish that are also normally found deep in the ocean wash up on shore, it was thought to be a sign of an impending earthquake. And you can take this as a sign to save money on Pokemon cards with code ReggieRob5 for 5% off at good old Troll and Toad. This is one of those Pokemon that's much more terrifying than it seems. Pokemon fact number 368. Did you know that Gorbis has a very suspicious Pokedex entry? The Pokedex keeps teasing the same entry for Gorbis for the past 19 years. For some reason, in the springtime, its body becomes really vividly pink. Well, thankfully, the answer was given 19 years in the past in Pokemon Emerald, where we're told that this cruel Pokemon will stab the bodies of other creatures, siphon out their fluids with its weird syringe mouth, and after it's finished feeding, its body turns a vivid pink. So it turns out that in the springtime, Gorbis is just filled with blood. Fill yourself with some savings on Pokemon cards by using code ReggieRob5 for 5% off your order at good old Troll and Toad. Hey guys, this one has the funny number. Pokemon fact number 369. Did you know that Relicanth is scientifically the perfect life form? Yeah, you heard that right. Relicanth is absolutely perfect. And we know this because it has stayed evolutionarily unchanged for 100 million years. For something in nature to not change over that amount of time means it's pretty much perfect. And if you're not convinced, well, Pokemon Ultra Moon outright tells us Relicanth is the perfect life form. You can also be a perfect life form by using code ReggieRob5 for 5% off at Troll and Toad. This is one for all you hopeless romantics out there. Pokemon fact number 370. Did you know that Luvdisc choose to die rather than stay single? Luvdisc is shockingly a very lovey-dovey Pokemon. In the Pokemon world, you even gift a Luvdisc to your crush, and they get released into honeymoon swimming pools. And if a Luvdisc is left alone for too long, it becomes despondent. That basically means depressed, and leaves itself open to attack. Which is when Pelipper comes along and snatches them up. Snatch yourself some savings on Pokemon cards with code ReggieRob5 for 5% off at Troll and Toad. If you find yourself feeling like Bagon, get some help. Pokemon fact number 371. Did you know that Bagon just can't stop throwing itself off cliffs every single day? Bagon hurls itself off cliffs head first. I mean, it ends up being completely fine because its head is harder than steel, but the reason it's doing this is because it has a burning desire to fly. So much so that whenever it sees bird Pokemon, it gets really jealous of them. And in a rage, it headbutts everything around it to pieces. Make other people jealous of the savings you'll get by using code ReggieRob5 for 5% off at good old Troll and Toad. It was my birthday. I turned 28, and I took some time off to go to Super Nintendo World in Osaka. It was the most magical thing I've ever seen. Pokemon fact number 372. Did you know that Shelgon is a bizarre, sluggish, bone-covered dragon cocoon that never eats or drinks? That's right, this thing is the epitome of defense. Any attack will bounce off its weird bone shell, and it just sits in caves motionless, never eating or drinking the entire time until it evolves. And it must do this for a long time because the Pokédex seems confused about why it just doesn't die. Hopefully you don't die before using code ReggieRob5 for 5% off Pokemon cards at good old Troll and Toad. Can anyone explain to me why it goes Bagon, Shelgon, Salamence and not Bagon, Shelgon, Flygon? Pokemon fact number 373. Did you know that Salamence achieved its dream? Ever since it was a Bagon, this Pokemon has been obsessed with flying. It has wanted to fly so much it threw itself off cliffs for most of its life. Well, Salamence's desire was somehow so strong it manipulated its own DNA. And now it has wings. And it's everything it ever wanted. It loves flying so much it never wants to land. It wakes up in the morning and flies all day until it's exhausted, when it goes to sleep ready to do it all again tomorrow. Fly yourself over to some savings on Pokemon cards with code ReggieRob5 for 5% off your order at Troll and Toad. Beldum's kinda creepy. Even creepier that it's known to travel in swarms. Pokemon fact number 374. Did you know that Beldum doesn't have blood? It just has magnetism. Yeah, so a very strange bit of information from the Pokédex that Beldum doesn't have any blood in its body. It even recommends if your Beldum is feeling bad, just give it a magnet. Oh, and you should probably just give up if you come across a swarm of them, because when hunting prey, they all think and act in unison. Maybe you should prey on some great offers on Pokemon cards by using code ReggieRob5 for 5% off a good old Troll and Toad. This thing is horrifying. Pokemon fact number 375. Did you know that Metang can survive collisions with fighter jets? Yeah, bizarrely, the Pokédex tells us that Metang won't even be scratched from full-speed collisions with jets. Now, first of all, that means in universe, plenty of people have died from mid-air collisions with Metangs. And secondly, yes, Metang can fly. In fact, it hunts down prey by rocketing towards them at 60 miles per hour. Jet yourself over to some savings on Pokemon cards by using code ReggieRob5 for 5% off your order at good old Troll and Toad. Ich habe groß Wurst in meine Hosen. Pokemon fact number 376. Did you know that Metagross would be one of the most terrifying terrifying predators in the world. Just picture it. You're going on a hike in the mountains, taking it easy, when suddenly a levitating psychic supercomputer spider made of steel decides to pin all 4 of your limbs to the ground with its legs and eats you with the mouth on its stomach. Use code ReggieRob5 for 5% off Pokemon cards, a good old troll and toad. Well, we finally made it to the group of Pokemon my username is based on. Pokemon fact number 377. Did you know that Regirock should not be alive? Unlike most legendary Pokemon, the Pokedex actually mentions scientists studying Regirock. And what they found with their cutting-edge technology when they scanned its body was nothing. Its body is made up of nothing else except random pieces of stone, with no reason why it should be alive. The rocks that make up its body are actually from completely different places all around the globe. Use code ReggieRob5 for 5% off Pokemon cards, a good old troll and toad. God damn the seductive energy I feel when I wear this. Pokemon fact number 378. Did you know that Regice won't even melt in magma? Part of the reason I love the Regi Pokemon are because of how crazy their Pokedex entries are. Regice's body cannot be melted, even being perfectly fine when dipped in molten magma. Any creature that approaches it gets frozen solid, which isn't a surprise given it controls minus 200 degrees Celsius winds. And its body is a good few thousand years old. In fact, it comes from the Ice Age. You can chill out with code ReggieRob5 for 5% off Pokemon cards at good old Troll and Toad. Hey, why did they censor the Gen 4 Registeel sprite? Oh. Pokemon fact number 379. Did you know that Registeel might not be from Earth? So unlike the other 2 original Regis, whose bodies are made from normal rocks and ice from around the world, Registeel is made from a metal that is not of this Earth. Its body is sturdier than every other metal known to the Pokemon world, but it can also stretch and bend with no issues. Same. No, not same. It's said to have hardened in the Earth's mantle over tens of thousands of years. When it finally emerged, the Pokedex tells us that ancient people imprisoned it, and in modern times we found that Registeel is actually hollow. Don't hollow out your wallet when you could use code ReggieRob5 for 5% off Pokemon cards at good old Troll and Toad. After Link does the dirty, if he uses Recall, would it all spludge back up there or what? Anyway, Pokemon fact number 380. Did you know that Latias travel in herds? Yes, despite being a legendary Pokemon, it's known that there are several in existence, but it'd be very hard to spot them due to the fact they're covered in glass-like feathers that refract light and make them invisible. It's telepathic and easily senses people's emotions, and if it senses any hostility, it'll just start screaming to intimidate you. Avoid my hostility by saving money on Pokemon cards with code ReggieRob5 for 5% off a good old Troll and Toad. Been a while since I opened up one of these bad boys. Oh wait, did I say bad boys? Let's cut right to the good stuff. 2 Annihilapes. Pokemon fact number 381. Did you know that Latios could force you to see horrible things? Yeah, not only is this psychic dragon faster than jets, it's also an extremely powerful telepath that can show you anything it's seen or imagines, forcibly. So get on its bad side and it could show you things like excessive violence, or the Rule 34 section for Latios. Basically be thankful that it's compassionate, intelligent, and usually avoids humans. By the way, I stream on YouTube pretty much every day at 8 p.m. EST. Pop in, say hi, and don't forget to use code ReggieRob5 for 5% off Pokemon cards at Troll and Toad. For me, Kyogre was pretty hard to pronounce when it first released. What's the worst way you've ever pronounced a Pokemon's name? Pokemon fact number 382. Did you know that Kyogre has a lot of similarities to a sea monster from the Hebrew Bible? The Leviathan, a large sea creature said to reside in the Mediterranean Sea, seems to be the inspiration behind Kyogre. The Leviathan was even said to shine a brilliant light from its eyes and body, and guess who matches that description once they revert to their primal form? The Leviathan is part of a trio, alongside the Behemoth, a chaos monster of the land, and Ziz, a giant sky monster. Sounds familiar? Better get familiar with code ReggieRob5 for 5% off Pokemon cards, a good old Troll and Toad. Team Magma are always the better team, but goddamn Archie's a Giga Chad. Pokemon fact number 383. Did you know that Groudon seems to be just as inspired by the Hebrew Bible as Kyogre? So like Kyogre and the Leviathan, Groudon seems to be based on the Behemoth. This massive land beast is described as having bones of bronze and limbs like iron bars, which is a pretty metal description. But the main similarity to Groudon is that the Behemoth is is meant to have a massive battle to the death with the Leviathan at the end of time. Just like Kyogre and Groudon's absolute hatred of each other. Save a biblically accurate amount on Pokemon cards with code ReggieRob5 for 5% off at Troll and Toad. Do you pronounce Rayquaza as Rayquaza, or do you say it the right way? Pokemon fact number 384. Did you know that Rayquaza seems like a mix of god monsters from different mythologies? So Kyogre and Groudon are both heavily inspired by the Leviathan and the Behemoth. And there is a third member of that trio called Ziz, which seems to inspire Rayquaza as King of the Skies, except it's meant to look like a griffin. It was also so tall that its feet reached the bottom of the ocean, its head knocked against the sky, while its wings blotted out the sun. So hey, there's a few differences. But that's where the Aztec god Quetzalcoatl comes in. I mean, look at it. Big green flying serpent. And I mean, to be fair, it's not like Kyogre looks like a sea dragon or Groudon like a pregnant elephant. Avoid your elephant getting pregnant by using code ReggieRob5 for 5% off Pokemon cards at Troll and Toad. Pokemon fact number 385. Did you know that Jirachi only wakes up for 7 days every 1,000 years? Who knows how old this Pokemon is, considering sleeping for a millennium is just part of its life. It'll only wake up if someone with a pure voice sings to it. Me? When awake, you can grant any wish. You just have to ride it on one of those streamer things that hang from its head. You'd think something that sleeps for so long would be in danger of getting attacked, right? Well, it turns out that Jirachi will not only be protected by a crystal cocoon, it can also fight without waking up. You won't wake up if you don't use code ReggieRob5 for 5% off Pokemon cards at Troll and Toad. Hey baby, let me see that Deoxys. Pokemon fact number 386. Did you know that Deoxys had a really weird first encounter? Now back in 2004, if you were one of the lucky people to get your hands on the event item, the Aurora ticket, you could go to Birth Island. On Birth Island was a triangle. To encounter Deoxys, players would have to complete a special puzzle by following the shortest path to where the triangle would move, which was going left 5 times, down once, hitting A, down going right 5 times, going up 3 times, going right 4 times, left down 2 times, hitting A, and finally going up 4 times and hitting A. Funnily enough, the triangle in the Delta episode of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire follows this exact same pattern. And that's the end of Generation 3. The full Generation 3 compilation is up on YouTube right now. And as always, you can use code ReggieRob5 for 5% off Pokemon cards at good old Troll and Toad.